the box. Okay, and it's not exactly a box, and I'll explain that as I go. So I'm gonna sort of demonstrate it before I actually construct it and go over front, there it is, okay. Before I go over the measurements. So that's a front panel. So it's going to look like this. So the sides are going to be open, and the reason the sides are open is because it's going to accordion out when the box or the lid is off. If you fixed anything on the side, then you wouldn't be able to expand those pockets, so you'd lose some of that functionality. I've not done this before, so we're going to give it a shot and see how it goes. Okay, so you're going to have a bottom, a back, a top, a front closure, and a front panel, which doubles up this one so that when this folds over, they meet sort of in the middle. Okay, so it's going to stand up just like so. So now I'm going to start by telling you the sizes of each one of these. And so I've numbered them, and on the front. So the front piece, so the front panel that you're going to see when the box is closed, is 6 by 3 3/4. 6 by 3 3/4. And that's piece 1. The second piece is actually the bottom, and that's 6 by 3. That's the base of it, 6 by 3. The back is 6 by 4 1/4. 6 by 4 1/4. The top is 6 by 3. And then the front closure, the piece that's going to come over the front, is 6 by 2. So again, it's going to be constructed like so. Okay, and then we're going to add the 6th piece, which is the front panel, so that when the flap comes over, both of these wind up on the same plane. And our magnets are going to be up here on the front, so that this closure can come down right over it and be closed. Okay, so it's all going to get laid out and covered like so. Front panel. So I got to make sure I got it all upside down. So there's 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, the front panel will get added after we get all of this built into place. So I want it to match the rest of my album, so I'm going to build this much like I build the cover of an album. We're just going to have a lot of score lines that fold around. So we are going to need a piece of paper that's big enough and wide enough to go the full length of this. So I'm going to go ahead and take them apart. I just temporarily taped them together so that I could show you how the box is going to look. So I'm going to take them apart, and then I am going to get a piece of black cardstock that I can wrap this with. So I will be back after I separate all of these and get my black cardstock. Okay, everyone, when we were last together, we were putting these two, what originally were 12 by 12 sheets together. So we've got this nice 24-inch spread or just under it. But before I did that, I trimmed these down to about 8.5 because, as you can see, our box isn't going to be that wide. So I've laid out my pieces. I got tape on them. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a reference line on the bottom, and then I'm going to start laying in my pieces. And I have to double check everything because I want to make sure the bottom piece is actually laid right on top of this seam so that it's not something we see from the top. It's going to get covered. No. Yeah, it'll get covered anyway, but I really kind of want it on the bottom. And I think what's going to happen is I'm going to wind up with a piece left over, and that's good because I still have the 6 by 2.5 inch panel that needs to get covered. So let's see, I think that's the flap. So I can tell this is the top and the bottom because the top and the bottom are going to be the same size. Okay, this is the back, the bottom, the front. And then I've got one more piece, and it's this one that's going to lay here. Okay, so I'm going to go over it real quick just so you can lay yours out in order. And it can be completely opposite, but the sequence has to be the same. But you can start on either side. I'm going to go left to right. This is 2 by 6, followed by 3 by 6, 4.5 by 6, 3 by 6, 3 3/4 by 6. And that's the order that you want these things to lay out in. Okay. Now that we have that, we can flip all the tape sides down. And then I'm going to start by laying in, and I'm just going to double check everything's going to fit. And that's kind of tight. So I'm going to slide that over a little bit. And when I say everything's going to fit, I want to have enough left over on this side to wrap around. And it looks like it's going to work out fine. But I'm going to start by laying down the bottom piece, and then I'm going to measure everything left to right off of it. So remember, you can see, or you may or may not be able to see in this light, but right here, I'm going to put a white line. Right here is where the two pieces are joined, but that is on one side. On the other side, that line is over here. So it's okay if we shift over a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down right here. I'm going to get the tape off, and we'll go ahead and lay this piece down. We'll get busy getting this wrapped. And I think this is 1.5 inches. You can use any size tape, and you can even do glue, but I prefer tape because then I don't have to worry about, no, it's 1 inch. Then I don't have to worry about any buckling or warping of the paper, because that would be a lot of glue. Okay, so that is good. All right, now I'm just going to line this up with my reference line down here. That's about the center. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to line everything off that. So the next thing I think I'll do is this one. And I need my spacer. And this is my spacer, and I've gone over this many, many times before, but it's really just 2 pieces of whatever chipboard you're using. And that's what I use to create the gap between the two. And for me, that's worked out perfect. Some people prefer just one, the same width, but I like it a little bit more. In this design, I'm actually expecting it to open up like a book, so I want it to have a little more movement. It's not just going to be a box. If it was a box, I wouldn't want any space at all. And when I'm all finished building this, you'll see what I mean. Okay, that's in. Now we're going to continue. This will be the next piece that goes in. My dog just came in to visit, and she's doing the heavy size. She's had a tough day. Okay, now as I'm putting this in, I come in at an angle, like so that I'm not going in straight, but I'm coming in at an angle, and I'm pushing as hard against this and down below before I start to press it to the black cardstock. So I come in at an angle and then press against my spacer, and that's how I find my placement. And when you get it pressed into place, you should be able to let go of everything and this spacer should stand up. If it doesn't, if it falls out, that means your gap is too wide, which sometimes you can still deal with, but ideally it's nice and snug and you actually have to pull it out of the space. Okay. All right. Okay, and we have one more piece. Goes right here. Yep, and that's not a whole lot, but it's definitely enough to wrap around. And of course I could have slid everything down, but I really was trying to center the join between the two 12 by 12 sheets. So if you'd rather have it more centered, that's fine. But you have to, when you're laying it out, think about where that join is going to be, where that joint is going to be, and how exposed will it be. The other place, if I didn't put it on the bottom, I'd put it on the back. I did something wrong. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 3 and 4 are interchangeable, so it should have gone 1, 2, and these two are the same size. 3, 4, and 5. So that's the other. I wrote a description on one side of what it was, whether it was the top, bottom, and then flipped them over and sequenced them, and then I got 3 and 4, or 2 and 4. Swapped, but they're the same size, so it doesn't really matter. That's the bottom, that's the top. I was just checking one more time before I lay down my last piece that I'm putting it down in the order that it should be, and it is. Okay, so, oh no, that went in very crooked. I gotta lift that up. Yikes. Hopefully it's not too stuck. And I can get it without tearing up everything. This tape is so strong. I'm hopeful. The other thing I could do is undo, but then I have to wait a whole long time for the glue to, for the undo to dry. I think I may have torn my paper. I did. Okay. All right. Well, I've torn my paper, so I'm just going to go ahead and rip that off. That's very disappointing. Okay. Well, and hopefully you don't do the same thing I did, but in order to preserve this, I'm just going to join another piece here and have it continue on. That's very disappointing. But here's how I'm going to mask it, just so you guys know when you have problems like this. So I am going to put a join here and then add that piece and be much more careful to get my spacing right. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this down to fit. And then this side, this will become the inside. And then I'm going to lay down paper and do this side again. And that'll be the outside. And that'll make sense in just a minute. So let me trim off piece of paper. So I need my X-Acto knife, which I may have actually left in the other room. I did. I'll be right back. I'm just checking for the grain. I can tell by how much the paper wants to collapse on itself. This is against the grain. This is with the grain. I'm going to trim these both down to 8.5 height. And then we're going to still need the 24 inches in width. And you don't have to trim it down to 8.5. It's easier to handle on the desktop. So now I've got these two, I'm going to join them. And I'm using 3/8 inch tape. It's plenty wide enough. You don't have to use it. You can use something wider if you want. A lot of times I use 3/8 inch because I need all the width. I can't really afford to give any of the width up. But in this case, you've got plenty. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, but you might as well try to make it straight. And I use my grid here to help me do that. And I just let it fall on itself. Okay, so that's it. So now I'm going to take this, and this is going to get glued or taped down to this. And then I'm going to fold this over, and this will become the inside. Hopefully that makes sense. And I haven't lost you guys. Okay, so I got to think about... That's the top, that's the bottom. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm putting the bottom piece. I'm actually going to label them. So it's the front, the bottom, the back, the top, and the closure. So I'm working left to right, and I'll go ahead and so this isn't going to be here. I got a bolder pen. Excuse me, closure. Top, bottom, front, and then this is the back. Okay, so we're going to put tape on this, and then we're going to lay it down here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a reference line. And it's a little bit over an inch. I just use the width of my ruler to figure that out. So there's nothing scientific. It needs. I just think pulling over an inch is very easy when I'm wrapping something. I just think that's an easy to work with. So now I'm going to put tape on the back of all this. I'm really missing my tape tear tool, but I've gotten up enough times. I'm going to try to make it work with what I got. Okay, and we're going to turn it around, do this side. Actually, I am going to stop because it's taking me too long with the scissors. Be right back. Okay, while I was away, I went ahead and added tape to the whole thing. So I'm going to lay this down here, and for the life of me, I can't find my tape tear tool, so I just did it offline because it's not very pretty to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and get my tape off, and then we're going to lay this down, and then we're going to wrap this, and it should start taking some shape. And I actually did it backwards. Ideally, when you're removing tape from a large surface area like this, you want to start from the top and work down. That way you're not dragging your hand across the tape, but I did a little bit of both. As soon as I pulled it off, I realized what I'd done. But if you start the top down, like I said, you're not dragging your hand over the tape the whole time, the sticky tape. Good. Got a little bit of tape backing here. Okay. Now I've got my reference line, and that is about the center line on the flip side. So that's my target for the bottom. There's my bottom. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm actually going to go ahead and start to crease it. And the only reason I'm really doing this is because I want to see where the bottom panel actually is. And it's right there. So I don't have to worry about spacing because I already did that on the inside. Okay, now it's all down. Now we're not going to trim this off. It's actually going to get wrapped over. Okay. Okay, so one of the things I am going to do is, this will be a little bit more than I need, so I'm going to trim it down. So that essentially I have kind of an equal border around it as I start to wrap it. So that's a little more paper than I need. That was awkward, so I couldn't get a very good pressure on it. Try that one more time. There we go. Save this piece. You're going to use it to wrap something else. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. Sorry, I'm spinning it around, but it's easier if I work from the left because I'm left-handed. And again, this is going to get folded over, and this will become the inside, so you don't have to focus on perfection. I'm just trying to trim it down so that it's just a little easier to handle. Okay. The next thing we're going to want to do is miter these corners. Actually, let's go ahead and add tape, and then we'll miter the corners. So we're going to run tape, and I'm going to go back to my 5/8. I'm going to run tape around the whole edge of the chipboard. This would be chipboard. It's cardstock back chipboard now, so it's a little harder to see the edge, but I'm just going around the edge. Top and bottom, and then down the sides. So we're putting this on the edge, and then we're going to run tape around the edge of this, just like so. And then when you fold it over, this tape winds up grabbing the exposed cardstock. Okay, so now we're going to do it one more time. And we are going to miter the corners, but we'll do that after we lay our tape down. Get everything burnished. Okay, and now before we go much further, I want to burnish. I don't know why that's buckling. There we go. to train. Okay. Okay, so that's essentially what it's going to look like. Pretty much. So I'm just trying to kind of coach it a little bit before I actually pull the tape off and wrap it. Okay. The other thing I meant to do was just run the bone folder right where it's going to wrap. Okay, now this is a long piece and we've got lots of hinge areas. So we're going to want to start in the middle and work our way out so that you don't wind up with a bunch in the center. So start in the center and work your way out. Oops, I forgot to miter my corner. I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, let's miter these corners so I don't forget. I'm going to use my spacer and put in a quick reference line that I'm cutting to. And this will ensure that you don't over trim and that there's enough cardstock to cover and there won't be any chipboard exposed. I always err on the side of caution and I cut on the outside of the line I draw, so don't cut on the inside, cut on the outside. You can always trim again, you can't add paper on. Okay, now I need to do the same thing here. This I'm having to eyeball because I ran the tape before I mitered, which I shouldn't have done. So I might have to trim that again. We shall see. Kind of hard to do with all that sticky. Okay, so probably gonna have to redo those corners, or not redo them, but retrim them. So just working that. Okay, now I'm gonna try to tuck this in. And I'll see how much I need to trim. Okay, that side's good. This side's gonna need a little work. Okay, that's good too. good. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and stick down this side. And I'm gonna pull up this too. Now we're going to start center and work our way out. Okay, now the last piece is going to be to fold this over, and then we're going to start working at getting some shape here. Oh, you know what? I realized I didn't take the tape backing off the top. Man, I'm having all kinds of issues today. So I took off the backing on the chipboard, but not the backing on the cardstock. And it's okay, because all you have to do is get a tab and it'll pull like a zipper. And I'm like, why isn't this laying flat? And that's why. I'll pull that out and now just press that all into place. No problem. I checked to make sure I didn't do it on the other side. I didn't. It was just this side. Okay. Okay, now we're going to push this from the center, work our way out, and flatten as we go. And then the last side. Okay. Now we're starting to get the shape of a box. Okay, back, front. And the top goes like so. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. Now there's one more piece. As you can see, there's an overlap here. I made another piece that fits right here that I'm going to cover in black cardstock, and it's actually going to get adhered here. So when you close the box, the top flap will meet onto this. We're going to place magnets right here, and that's what's going to keep this closed. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to cover this in black cardstock. This being 6 by 2.5, which I went over earlier, but 6 by 2.5. For the life of me, I can't find my tape tear tool. It's distressing. It's lost between the two rooms I've been working in today. Okay. We're just going to wrap this, so I'm going to make sure I've got enough room. Yeah, I do. Okay, I'm going to put a quick reference line. Okay, get the tape off. Okay, just want it to line up and be about centered. Okay, we're going to trim off the excess and then pull it around. straight. Okay. Okay, same process that we used to wrap the other piece. We're going to add some tape around the edges of the cardstock and the chipboard. And I'm going to remember to miter my corners before I start wrapping. Okay, let's miter the corners real quick. Again, I'm using my spacer. It's twice as wide as the chipboard that's laying down. I lost my marker. Well, that's twice. To do some housekeeping. Okay. I didn't mention it, but this design, less the chipboard, this sort of accordion design, I mean, you could put this anywhere in an album. It doesn't have to be 12, but I mean, you could do 4 of these instead of a waterfall or something like that. So it's kind of a cool feature in general. I've done expanding pockets before, but not really this accordion. So not in any projects online anyway. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and fold. It's so small, I'm just folding everything over. Okay. And you can see that the corners don't look as nice as I want them, so I'm going to trim that off with my scissors. Now when you're trimming your corners after you've already laid the paper down, and so you can see this too, never trim toward the corner, always trim away from it. And that way you'll never overcut. So from the corner away, not away and then toward the corner. All right, that looks pretty good. And that looks good. I'm gonna take my bone folder and just sort of burnish everything into place. Okay, now let's pull our box back in. So this is how it's going to look. So now this piece is going to get fixed down here. And so again, it's just adding that second layer. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that right here. And I'm going to do that using tape, I think. And then we'll be able to place our magnets, and the rest, as far as this goes, is really decorating it and installing the accordion, which will be the last thing we do, because that way you don't have to flip it around so much. So I've got a fair amount of tape on here, and then what's exposed I'm just going to cover with glue. And I'll probably put a little glue on top of the tape so I can slide it around until I get it right where I want it. Okay, so pull your box around, get it to the way it's supposed to be. Make sure you're putting it on the right panel. The panel it should be laying on is 3 3/4 by 6. 3 3/4 by 6. It's actually bigger than that now because it's wrapped in paper, and even bigger yet because I wrapped it in paper twice, which was not the plan. Okay, when you're getting ready to apply this, make sure the bottom is flat and you've got your front panel upright. And then you want to apply it, making sure that the bottom of this piece is actually flush. You don't want it taller or shorter than the front panel, so that when it stands up, it's using this second piece of chipboard to help stabilize it. I got glue on the front, but that's okay because this whole thing's going to get decorated. All right, so that's in place. Now when this comes around, it's going to go right there and make a flush closure. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add some magnets here and here. And because of the size and stiffness of this, I'm actually going to use large magnets. And this is all going to get covered with designer paper. I'm going to use 4 magnets, or 2 pair. I'm using a nice fat piece of tape. Okay, now we'll add the mates. These magnets are super strong but very brittle, and I actually broke one of my magnets, so I'm trying to get it to adhere. I'm going to try to tape it back together. And not waste it. Okay, there we go. So that's pretty close. So, all right, so let's get a piece of tape under each one of those. And then we will close the flap so that we can locate the magnet mate. Okay, so this is going to come around. Nope, that didn't work. That's not picking up the tape. I'm gonna have to try something else. It's so stiff, it's not grabbing, and it's so thick, it's not grabbing. So let me try. I'm gonna put some tape just on the back side. So, and then I'll cover it with tape. Okay. So let's do that. Then I'm gonna put a little piece of tape on here. that'll cover it. Okay, so there's one, and now we're going to repeat that process over here. And I wish I had a magnet that wasn't broken. That was this size, but I don't, so that doesn't seem to want to work. Small tape. Here we go. Okay, there we go, and that is how it's going to stand. And then we are going to install our file folder inside and decorate the outside. And the way the file folder is actually going to get adhered is we are going to attach the very last panel to the back and the very front panel to the front, like so. So that'll be actually attached completely. And then we're going to do the same thing to the back. And then when you open this, because the front and back will be attached, it's going to open like so. Okay, so we're almost there, but I'm going to have to stop for now because I have to cook dinner for my family. And when I come back, we will start trimming out and getting ready to decorate the outside of this. I'm going to do everything to the box before I put the inside in, just to manage the wear and tear on it. And we're getting there. We're almost done. So this is kind of a neat project. It's fun. I've never done one before, so I feel like I'm stumbling a little. Hopefully you guys are bearing with me. But I'm pretty happy with the way it's turning out. I think I might need to adjust my magnets just a little bit. Either that or work on my scores. They're not quite where I want them. But now that I've done it, I am sure that you will want to use large magnets because it's pretty heavy duty. And I feel like if you don't, you're going to be disappointed. Although having said that, I mean, they're fat. They're making it stand away from here further than I had hoped. I was wanting these to look a little more flush. So I'm going to work on that a little bit, see if I can't get those to marry up a little bit better. And if I do, and I do something different, I'll share that with you in the next video. Thanks, everybody. This is Daphne from Scrap and Create. Thanks for tuning in, and I missed all you guys. So don't forget to take a minute to like, subscribe, share. We really want to get our videos out to as many people as possible. It's free. The best way you guys can help us do that is by leaving a comment or liking our video, because then that helps put us in recommendation for other people who are like-minded. So if you are interested in any of the materials used in the product, we encourage you to come take a look at our shop. If you live anywhere in the United States or its territories, we ship there. And we try to be competitive and provide excellent customer service. So if you come over to our shop, we're happy to serve you. If you don't, that's okay too. Enjoy our videos. And I'll be back soon to complete this project.